Hello and welcome to the show. I'm back on F1 2015, carrying on the career mode. After the first 3 races, I'm currently sat in second place in the championship, just 19 points behind Hamilton, and I was hoping to claw some of these points back as we head to Bahrain. Bahrain is a circuit that I tend to do relatively well at. There is one very nasty corner, turn 10, that is the turn that was on screen just then. Turn 10 is a really tough corner to get right. The rest of the track, though, I really do quite like. This circuit, a relatively low downforce track here. Yeah, getting turn 10 right is kind of make or break a lap. It is a very tricky corner. Now, one slightly peculiar thing, one aspect of Bahrain that I certainly hadn't seen in Malaysia or China is I was doing kind of 3-lap runs on the tyres to get my fastest lap time. Certainly, I'd found in Malaysia and China after a couple of laps, the 3rd lap was never particularly good. The tyres had just gone away a little bit too much. Around here, tyre wear, certainly to me, felt less than it has been, and it's off of my 3rd lap that was going quickest. I kind of had sort of like 1 or 2 confidence-building laps to begin with, and then the 3rd lap I could really go for it and get a decent lap time. And in practice, that was kind of the route that I was going with. Now we're going up to the horrible turn 10. You kind of flat out through 9, and then you're sort of braking and steering or trying to get it sorted out for the really nasty hairpin. It's incredibly easy to either brake a bit too early, and then you're very slow. If you brake a bit too late, of course you're going to miss the corner. It's easy to lock the brakes if you got things wrong. These next corners are lovely, though. Make sure you get it slowed down. You kind of got to turn 11 is a bit of a funny one. You keep thinking you can brake quite late into it. I mean, you can get away with braking late into it, but you're better to kind of brake a little bit early and kind of get a much neater line and carry the speed through there. And these final corners, yeah, I do certainly love the end of the lap here. And the final turn is a corner that I seem to be able to get this particular time around. Wasn't quite perfect. I braked a tad too early, but I tend to be able to get a really good run off of the final turn, which I was hoping would put me in good stead when it comes to the race. In practice, though, I only managed a 33.5. Confused me a little bit, as it felt like, okay, it wasn't quite a 100% perfect lap, but it felt like that was going to be on for a decent lap. You see me flicking through the fuel mode there, if I'd forgotten to stick it into rich. It put me into 5th. It's not, the 33.5 is not too bad a lap. As you can see, Hamilton was leading the way, which is not what I wanted to see. A 32.7 from the Mercedes. Bottas was going quickly here as well, with a 33.0, of course. Rosberg up in 3rd. Yeah, I mean, a 33.5 is not terrible, but I was a little bit bemused as to quite why I hadn't got any more speed out of the car. Further down, it was all in 2x2s from 13th back with the 2 Toro Rossos and Saubers. The McLarens weren't faring particularly well here, and of course neither were the Manners. Yeah, 5th was a little bit of a disappointment from me. However, I realised when I went to load up to qualify, I hadn't put the right setup on the car. I'm still using the sort of the default ones, the options. I'd selected the wrong one by accident. So now we had less downforce, and I was hoping we could be going quicker. For Q1, of course, I was again trying to make it through on the prime tyres. I figured, again, the Ferrari should be quick enough. We should be okay to get through. This lap, I massively outbraked myself into turn 1, and it was under a little bit of pressure. I hadn't actually been going particularly quickly with these tyres. Again, much like we had at China, my car wasn't quite getting the speed with these tyres. You can see my previous 2 laps, the fastest I got was a 34.7. I was again doing these 3-lap runs, and they were, on the most part, working for me. To be fair, I could probably, you can kind of get away with quite a lot in Q1. You know, when you're in the Ferraris and doing relatively decent, you can kind of get away with. I could probably get through with the 34.7, but I kind of wanted to see what we could do. It is a final section of the lap where I was absolutely flying through here. I carried an awful lot of speed through these final few corners, with just 1 more to go. This time getting the braking right through there and carrying as much speed with just stick a wheel onto the curb and carry as much speed up towards the line. You flick the DRS open just before you get to the line, and it was a very quick lap time, despite running wide at the first corner, a 33.4 on the prime tyres. I was pretty damn pleased with that one maybe slightly overkill on the lap times. Really, I mean the 34 would have put me around sort of, where is it? In fact, it would have put me up in sort of 7th, 8th place. With that time though, I get to second again. Hamilton into the 32s. So that was I was really pleased with that sort of lap speed. Vettel and Rosberg also both on primes were sort of half a second down, 34.0 and 34.2s. So yeah, I was kind of now some confidence with my Ferrari. I didn't know whether I'd ever be able to do that lap time again, but yeah, I managed to. It was a good time. Further back, it was kind of becoming a familiar sight. Alonso couldn't get out of Q1. Maldonado tried to on primes and failed miserably. Perez also would go out trying to get through on the primes. Grosjean would make it through using the primes, and Button's McLaren would make it into the top 15 just about. No real massive surprises on this particular sort of Q1. Q2 and things were kind of uneventful. Again, doing these 3-lap runs. The first 2 laps hadn't been particularly spectacular. I was going for a better run on this third lap. I get things wrong out of turn 10. I get the car kind of, I spin the wheels up over the curb. I'm trying to keep the lap together, and we just lose the back end, and there goes the front wing. It's a little bit unfortunate. I thought I could get away by keeping the power down, and I couldn't. Yeah, trying to save the lap there sort of cost me the front wing, and I didn't want to waste another set of tyres. I was hoping that the 33.8 was going to be enough to get me through, which it was enough. It got me into 5th place. Cars that went out of this one, again, perhaps a little bit unsurprising lot. Kvyat is not having a particularly good season with the Red Bull. Again, trying to go through on primes didn't work. Button down in 15th. At the front, though, it was another ominous sign. Both of the Mercedes were into the 32s. Vettel was at a 33.0, so it was going to be very close. I was expecting it to be very close. Yeah, I only had a couple of not particularly amazing laps on that one, and trying to save the tyres. It was going to have to do. As we come to the final qualifying session and the final lap that I would get, again I was doing the same thing with these 3-lap runs. As we come on to the final run, I was hoping I could go a little bit faster. I'd been doing remarkably consistent, very low 33s, 33.0s, 33.1s and 33.2s and so on. I just couldn't quite get that elusive 32, and I was expecting that is what I was going to need. Having seen the Mercedes get 32s in every single session so far, I was expecting if I wanted to get the Ferrari on pole, that is the lap time that I was going to have to do. And yeah, I was pushing this thing as much as I could. Get turn 10 absolutely spot on this time around, which is always nice. If you get turn 10 right, it is a fantastic corner, but it's you probably get, for me anyway, I probably get it right sort of 1 in every 3-ish tries. I go through there. It's yeah, it's just an awkward funny corner to try and get sorted. Again, we're flat out all the way through the long sort of sweeping corner. Make sure you get it slowed down. This is another turn here, the second to last one, where it's you kind of turn in and you think you can get away with taking more speed than you actually can. It's very easy to try and overdrive the car through that corner, and then up towards the final turn, just brush the curb on the inside. We do get a little bit of a wiggle on from the back of the car as we leave that final corner. I'd slid it about a couple of times this lap, but it was enough to get the 32 that I wanted, a 32.7 from the Ferrari, and it was enough to get me onto pole, which is always nice to get up there. Amazingly though, when it comes to the times, nobody really challenged. Again, we see everybody went kind of slow in the final qualifying session. I was the only car to get into the 32s. Admittedly, it was all very close from second down to about 6th. They are all very similar lap times, but nobody really challenged for the 32s. What was unfortunate for me is Hamilton, the guy that I really needed to beat by multiple places, if at all possible, had qualified second. Bottas was going strongly here at Bahrain in 3rd, ahead of Rosberg in 4th, and Vettel in 5th, with the other Williams in 6th. Yeah, I was a little bit of a shame almost to see Hamilton in 2nd, as I needed to try and make up as many points as possible. Come race day, and well, I wasn't really expecting rain, let's be honest. While we have had a pretty soggy start to this season, I don't think in any of the Formula 1 games, certainly with keeping the weather dynamic, I don't think I've ever seen any rain. Go to Bahrain, and again, all through the sessions it had been saying it was going to be clear. So yeah, there was unlikely to be a rain interruption. After getting too much wheel spin off the start in China, I tried to do better here. I didn't get wheel spin this time round, I was just slow off the start. Hamilton managed to get his car up the inside while the Williams tried to go around the outside. I kept myself around the outside of Hamilton. I didn't realise. I thought I'd seen the Williams drop back in the mirrors. I didn't realise he was still alongside me. I don't know what car I thought the Bottas was when I was glancing in the mirrors, but I gave him a little bit of a bump through the very fast corner. We didn't do any damage to the cars, but it did cost the Williams a little bit of time. It gave me a quite sizable gap, maybe like 1.5 second gap back to second place as Bottas and Hamilton were busy swapping places through the turns. It gave me a pretty comfortable gap on this first lap, completely unintentional. I was surprised I actually got myself around the outside of Hamilton, that I kept myself there. I was expecting to see the Mercedes get past, but I managed to make that manoeuvre stick as we come down this back straight. You can see I was pretty pleased with the gap. It was now just a challenge of trying to keep it like that. And I was pretty fortunate. The gap stayed very consistently in around the 2 second mark. And, if I had a slightly duff lap, it might drop down to sort of 1.9 seconds. If I had a quick lap, it would go up sort of 2.2, and it remained incredibly stable at that point. What was helped, I think, was by the big group of cars that were all fighting there. Bottas, Hamilton, Rosberg and Vettel were all fighting over second place, and of course as they were trying to change positions and so on, they were slowing each other down, and I could keep sort of the 2 second gap back. I was never under any massive pressure here. I could keep them out of the DRS zone, which was always helpful. You see here, it was 1.9 at the last sector, now it's got up to 2.1, and it would fluctuate slightly, but remain at that sort of gap back. It was just a case of don't make any silly mistakes with the Ferrari, as I'm still fighting the rear of the car a little bit. Now the one downside, of course, of doing the 3-lap runs when it came to qualifying is that the tyres you're going to be starting on are going to be a bit more warm than if you just done a single lap or if you do 2 or so. So I was wanting to come in a lap earlier. The strategy said for a lap 7 pit stop. I figured we're going to come in at the end of lap 6. We'll get some new tyres on, okay, we'll have slightly worse tyres come the end of the race. But seeing as I was beginning to now struggle a little bit with the tyres that we had on, again, the gap is still exactly the same as it was last time, 2.1. I figured get some new tyres on the car, and we would, it should work for my Ferrari. I was also hoping that this time around I was finally going to be far enough ahead of Vettel not to screw his race over, because I need Vettel to do well. I need Vettel to cause problems for the Mercedes. At some point Rosberg had managed to get his way past Bottas and Hamilton. I'm not quite sure when that happened, as there's some cars racing in the pit lane as we come down here. Unfortunately, it was close, not quite, to getting my car done before Vettel came in. It was very close, but yeah, didn't quite work out how I had hoped. But the good news for me, at least, there was a Mercedes chasing me down, yes, but it was Rosberg. And of course, Hamilton being behind Rosberg at the time they came into the pits, Hamilton was the one that had to stack, so Hamilton fell back. This is very good news for me regarding the championship at this stage of the race, having Hamilton fall further back. Of course, now though we've got the prime tyres, I was feeling pretty confident running these tyres. I have to say, having been very quick in Q1 with them. I was thinking we're going to do okay. Sure, okay, you got cold tyres on straight away. There was a little bit of sliding, and still in a slightly heavy car. The Ferrari perhaps not quite so good when we have all of the fuel in with the weight. It wasn't quite as nice to drive. Also, when I came out of the pits, helpfully I managed to stay ahead of Button, who was of course on a different tyre strategy. While Rosberg was behind the McLaren, it wouldn't take him long to find a way past. And while I did enjoy about a 3-second gap when I came out of the pits, Rosberg was closing. I was pushing this car as hard as I could on these tyres. I was going pretty damn quickly with this, for sort of, with race fuel on these tyres that were gradually wearing more and more. I was pretty pleased with the laps I was putting in. Wasn't making mistakes, running pretty consistently in the sort of the low 35s, often in the 34s as well. But I just couldn't do anything to stop the charge of Rosberg. He was absolutely flying. We were pulling away from the rest of the field. We were pulling away from Bottas, from Vettel, from Hamilton, and so on. But yeah, it was not enough. I just couldn't fend off the tide of the Mercedes. He was catching about half a second a lap-ish, provided I didn't run wide anywhere. And of course, the more he caught, the more I had to try and push, and the more likely I was, the more susceptible I was, to making just a little mistake here or a little mistake there. Yeah, it was getting rather nervous time as the lap started to tick down. The Mercedes was looming ever closer. However, Bahrain is not the easiest place to overtake. There are 2 DRS zones. However, the DRS zone coming into this corner here, you're not really likely to get an overtake done there. It's a really tough corner to try and get a pass done, and Rosberg wasn't close enough. I was getting good enough drive off that turn 10 that I could just about scamper away. You can see me starting to try harder. That's what I'm doing about just overdriving that corner. You think you can carry a bit more speed? No, it didn't work. Now we were in the real danger zone, the DRS zone down into turn 1. But again, I got that good drive off the final corner. It was, I wasn't pulling a huge gap over the course of the lap. Sure, Rosberg was catching me. However, I could get a good enough acceleration onto this straight that Rosberg was just too far back to have a look into turn 1. Turn 1, definitely the best place to get an overtake around this circuit. And again, despite getting a little bit of a slide going on, I'm far enough ahead. Rosberg can't have a look into this next corner. It'd have to be a massive dive from back there. Still, the laps ticked down and the Mercedes was trying to find a way past. He had to go at turn 1 around the outside, but that's a very tough manoeuvre to make stick. I think he may have outbraked himself a little bit there. Ran wide through the corner, and that's now given me some more, that nice safety margin to the car behind. Yeah, that overtake actually did cost him a fair bit, trying to get the pass done there. I'm still pushing. I'm exploring. We're testing the outer limits of the track there. I also think that he may have pushed his car sort of a little bit too hard in the whole catching up to me, as with that failed overtake, he did then sort of almost stopped closing the gap anymore. He kind of, he was never really again in a position to seriously challenge as we come through turn 10. I'm all over the curbs. He's there, he's looking, he'll have the DRS open and so on, but this straight wasn't long enough for the Mercedes to do anything, and he wasn't brave enough to have a big dive at this turn. I wasn't feeling the need to go particularly defensive. He's very, very slow off the corner. And as I said, I mean, the Mercedes was close, but he never really threatened again in the race. It was a similar story. I got a better run out of turn 10, and Rosberg is even further back this time round than he was last lap. Of course, if I make a big mistake in these final few corners, I knew I was in trouble, so I was actually being just a tad cautious through here. I knew that I could be good off the final turn. No point doing something stupid through these particular corners. Yeah, one small mistake and I was going to let Rosberg pass. That's pretty much how to drive these final few laps. I did have to go defensive. I did brake a little bit early into the final turn. I was just focusing, get the run off the corner, get the power down, a little wiggle from the car, but Rosberg is too far back to try anything, and I was able to take victory in Bahrain. Certainly the final few laps were rather daunting there, trying to hold off the much faster Mercedes, but I managed to do it. I think Rosberg may have killed his tyres. The final lap and a half never really posed a massive threat, never really felt like I had to go defensive. The best news though was Bottas got himself on the podium as well, which means Hamilton was further down the order, more points gain for me, which was very helpful. I think at one point Hamilton did fall back behind Vettel, but yeah, Vettel's Ferrari was unable to hold the Mercedes off, which meant Hamilton would get fourth, with Vettel coming in fifth. Ricciardo would make his way up into sixth. Pretty good result from him. Grosjean would carry on a decent season as well. In eighth, Massa had a fairly uneventful race. In this one, down in seventh. Verstappen would make his way up through the field to get a 10th place. Yeah, championship-wise, pretty good. Pretty good for me. I actually think Bottas got fastest lap. So I was just looking at that. Yeah, Bottas did get a fractionally faster lap. Further down the order, Will Stevens got an 18th place, beating Carlos Sainz, who for whatever reason came into the pits again. Much like we had Vettel do at China last time out. Sainz just decided he fancied another pit stop. Alonso was doing better in the races than he was in qualifying as well. Alonso got up to 13th while Button would fall down to... Where's Button gone? I've always lost him. I scroll back up to get the championship now. Yeah, Button didn't do particularly well in the race. As far as championship championship-wise goes, I am now within 6 points of Hamilton's Mercedes. Couldn't have really realistically asked for a much better race without Hamilton falling out. It is, getting all rather close at the top, especially with Rosberg closing in as well in third. Only 17 points cover the top three. Vettel sits in fourth, a little bit further back, and Bottas's decent season continues despite the abysmal China race in fifth. Further down, we find the drivers with no points. None of the McLarens have scored anything yet. Maldonado's dreary season continues, as does Sainz. It is Toro Rosso, the two manners, not being particularly fast, as you would perhaps expect. And to the Constructors' Championship, Mercedes lead the way by just 27 points, although I think that's going to be a much harder one to reel in. Anyway, that is it for the fourth round of this career mode playthrough. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.